In a galaxy where warriors broadcast their battles across trillion-star networks, where combat prowess determines planetary standing, and where alien civilizations measure worth by how many viewers watch you fight, one human teenager was about to shatter every record ever made. They called it the Arena of Eternal Glory, a vast digital coliseum where the greatest fighters from 1,000 worlds displayed their skills to audiences spanning entire star systems. For centuries, no species had managed to captivate viewers like the crystalline Zephyrians with their elegant bladework, or the four-armed Cretosians with their devastating power moves. But they had never seen a human fight. They had never witnessed what happens when raw determination meets creative chaos, when survival instinct collides with pure stubbornness. They were about to discover why humans didn't just participate in wars, they ended them. The story you're about to read chronicles the rise of Kai Chen, a 17-year-old from Earth's agricultural colonies, who went from anonymous farm worker to the most watched gladiator in galactic history. His fighting name would become legend. His battles would be studied for generations. His journey would prove that sometimes, the quietest voices carry the loudest roar. This is how humanity announced itself to the galaxy, not with diplomacy or trade, but with a young warrior whose fighting spirit could not be contained, could not be defeated, and could not be ignored. Kai Chen had been invisible his entire life, and he preferred it that way. On the agricultural world of New Harmony, 17 years old meant adult responsibilities and childhood dreams buried under endless rows of quantum-enhanced soybeans. The morning sun cast long shadows across the fields as Kai guided the harvester through another section, his weathered hands steady on the controls despite his youth. The machine hummed its familiar tune, a sound that had become the soundtrack to his existence. The only thing that broke the monotony was the small holoscreen mounted on his dashboard, quietly streaming feeds from the Arena of Eternal Glory. Kai watched with fascination as alien warriors battled across distant worlds, their every move broadcast to billions of viewers across the galaxy. The crystalline Zephyrians moved like living glass, their translucent bodies refracting light into deadly prismatic attacks. The Cretosians fought with 4 arms, each wielding weapons that could cleave through starship armor. The tentacled Morphians shifted their bodies into impossible configurations, becoming living weapons. But none of them fought like Kai imagined he would. During his lunch break, Kai would practice behind the equipment shed, using broken farming tools as makeshift weapons. He had studied every fighting style broadcasted from the arena, memorizing techniques and imagining improvements. His movements were crude, unrefined, but there was something different about them. Where the alien fighters relied on centuries of traditional forms, Kai instinctively combined techniques, creating hybrid attacks that existed nowhere in galactic combat databases. He never told anyone about these secret training sessions. His parents, Maria and David Chen, had sacrificed everything to secure their small farm on New Harmony. They needed him focused on the harvest, not daydreaming about impossible careers in distant arenas. Kai understood this, respected it, but couldn't silence the fire that burned in his chest whenever he watched the combat feeds. The day everything changed started like any other. Kai was replacing worn harvester blades when a sleek transport ship descended from the cloudy sky, its silver hull gleaming against the rural backdrop. Ships rarely visited their sector unless bringing supplies or collecting tribute payments. This vessel was different, elegant, expensive, bearing the symbol of the Galactic Entertainment Consortium. From the ship emerged a figure that immediately caught everyone's attention. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that shifted between deep purple and electric blue, Ambassador Vextar was a Chromakian diplomat known throughout the galaxy. His species could change their skin color to reflect their emotions, and right now he displayed the golden hue of curiosity mixed with determination. Vextar had come to New Harmony following reports of an unusual energy signature detected by long-range sensors. The Chromakians' advanced equipment had identified what their databases classified as unregistered combat potential emanating from this seemingly insignificant farming world. Such readings typically indicated the presence of a natural-born warrior, someone whose fighting instincts were so powerful they could be detected across star systems. The ambassador's first stop was the Chen farm, where his sensors indicated the strongest readings. Kai's parents greeted the alien diplomat with nervous politeness, offering refreshments while trying to understand why such an important figure would visit their modest home. Vextar accepted their hospitality graciously, his skin shifting to calming blue tones to put them at ease. "I seek one whose spirit burns with the fire of combat," Vextar explained, his voice carrying the musical quality common to his species. My instruments detect a warrior's soul on this world, one whose potential matches legends of old. Maria Chen looked confused, glancing at her husband before responding. Ambassador, we're simple farmers. There are no warriors here, only people trying to make an honest living from the soil. Vexstar's skin flickered with orange skepticism. His sensors couldn't be wrong. Somewhere on this farm was someone whose fighting potential registered higher than most arena champions. He requested permission to scan the property, and the Chens, unable to refuse such a distinguished visitor, agreed. Behind the equipment shed, Vexstar found evidence of Kai's secret training sessions. Scorch marks from improvised weapons, worn patches of ground where someone had practiced complex footwork, makeshift targets bearing the impact patterns of unconventional attacks. The ambassador's excitement grew as his skin shifted to brilliant gold. When Kai returned from the fields that evening, he found the alien diplomat waiting in his family's kitchen. Vexstar studied the young human with intense interest, noting the way Kai moved with unconscious precision, how his eyes automatically assessed potential weapons and escape routes. Even in this peaceful setting, the boy carried himself like a fighter. You are the one, Vexstar declared, his skin now blazing with silver excitement. The warrior my sensors detected. Kai's parents looked at their son in confusion. They had never seen him fight, never imagined he possessed any special abilities. To them, he was simply their hardworking, reliable boy who helped maintain the farm and never caused trouble. Vexstar explained the readings his equipment had detected. Your son possesses what we call prime combat resonance, a natural affinity for fighting that occurs perhaps once in a generation across the entire galaxy. His potential is extraordinary. The ambassador offered to sponsor Kai's entry into the arena of eternal glory, providing training, equipment, and the chance to compete on the galaxy's greatest stage. The offer included significant financial compensation for his family, enough to secure their farm's future and provide comfort for generations. Kai's mind raced. This was everything he had dreamed of, but he had never imagined it could become reality. His parents, however, reacted with protective concern. They knew the arena's reputation, spectacular entertainment built on real violence, where careers ended in medical chambers and some fighters never returned home. He's just a boy, David Chen protested. He has no training, no experience with real combat. How could he possibly survive against seasoned warriors? Vexstar's skin shifted to respectful purple. I understand your concerns, but you must understand what I'm offering. Your son has the potential to become one of the greatest fighters in galactic history. The readings I've detected suggest abilities that surpass current arena champions. The family spent hours discussing the opportunity. Kai argued passionately for accepting, describing his secret training and his deep knowledge of arena fighting styles. His parents worried about the dangers, the distance from home, the possibility of failure or injury in a violent profession. Finally, Vexstar offered a compromise. Allow me to arrange a preliminary assessment. If Kai demonstrates the potential I believe he possesses, we proceed with full sponsorship. If not, I leave and never return. The next morning, Vexstar set up a portable training facility in the Chen's largest field. Using holographic projectors, he created a basic arena environment, complete with simulated opponents and standard weapons. The test was designed to measure Kai's natural fighting instincts, his adaptability, and his potential for growth. What happened next would be discussed in arena circles for years to come. Kai entered the holographic arena equipped with basic training gear and a simple energy sword. The first opponent was a standard combat simulation, designed to test fundamental skills. Kai defeated it efficiently, his movements showing surprising sophistication for someone with no formal training. The second opponent was more challenging, featuring advanced combat algorithms. Kai struggled initially but adapted quickly, developing counter-strategies on the spot. His fighting style was unlike anything in Vexstar's databases, a chaotic blend of techniques that somehow created perfect harmony. For the third test, Vexstar activated a simulation based on a famous arena champion. This should have been impossible for a beginner to defeat. Instead, Kai studied his opponent for 30 seconds, then launched an attack sequence that dismantled the simulation in under 2 minutes. But it was the fourth test that truly amazed the ambassador. Vexstar activated multiple opponents simultaneously, creating a scenario that would challenge even experienced arena fighters. Kai's response was extraordinary. He didn't just fight the simulated enemies, he orchestrated their destruction like a conductor leading a symphony of violence. Kai's movements flowed between combat styles like water, incorporating elements from every fighting tradition he had studied. He used Zephyrian light-bending techniques, adapted Kratosian forelimb coordination for human anatomy, and employed Morphean flexibility concepts with human balance and precision. Most remarkably, he developed entirely new combinations that had never been attempted before. Vexstar's skin blazed with silver and gold excitement. In 37 years of scouting fighters across the galaxy, he had never witnessed such natural talent. Kai wasn't just a potential arena champion, he represented something entirely new in combat evolution. When the test concluded, Kai stood breathing heavily but victorious. His parents watched in amazement, finally understanding that their son possessed abilities far beyond anything they had imagined. The quiet farm boy who had never complained about his mundane life had been harboring the spirit of a warrior. That evening, the family made their decision. Kai would accompany Vexstar to the arena of eternal glory, beginning a journey that would transform him from an unknown teenager into the most famous fighter in the galaxy. His parents gave their blessing reluctantly but, with pride, understanding that their son was destined for something far greater than life on New Harmony. As Kai packed his few possessions, he felt a mixture of excitement and terror. He was leaving everything familiar to pursue a dream that had seemed impossible just days ago. But, deep in his heart, he knew this was his path. The fire that had burned within him for years was finally being given the chance to become an inferno. Vexstar promised to arrange the best training available, to provide equipment worthy of Kai's abilities, and to ensure he received opportunities to prove himself against worthy opponents. The ambassador's skin glowed with anticipation as he spoke of Kai's potential impact on the arena. "You will need a fighting name," Vexstar explained as they prepared for departure. "Something that captures your essence, your fighting spirit." Kai considered this carefully. He wanted something that honored his quiet origins while promising the spectacular future ahead. After much thought, he chose a name that would soon be known across the galaxy: Silent Thunder. The name perfectly captured his contradiction, the peaceful farm boy who could unleash devastating combat techniques, the quiet teenager whose fighting potential could shake the foundations of the arena itself. As their transport ship lifted off from New Harmony, carrying Kai toward his destiny, neither he nor Vexstar could have imagined the revolution about to unfold. They knew Kai had exceptional potential, but they couldn't foresee how his unique fighting style would captivate audiences, inspire new combat techniques, and establish humanity as a force to be respected throughout the galaxy. The journey to the arena would take several days, providing time for initial training and preparation. Kai spent hours studying advanced combat footage, learning about arena politics and procedures, and beginning to understand the magnitude of the challenge ahead. But he also spent time in meditation, connecting with the inner fire that had driven him to this moment. Silent Thunder was ready to announce himself to the galaxy. The arena of eternal glory existed in a space between dimensions, a massive construct that could accommodate millions of spectators while hosting battles that defied the laws of physics. As Kai's transport approached the arena station, he pressed his face against the viewport, watching in awe as the structure grew larger and larger until it filled his entire field of vision. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, combining architectural elements from hundreds of civilizations. Crystalline spires reached toward distant stars, metallic domes rotated slowly to generate artificial gravity, and energy fields created atmospheric barriers that allowed different species to coexist in their preferred environments. Millions of beings moved through transparent tubes that connected various sections, creating a living constellation of activity. Vexstar served as Kai's guide through the registration process, helping him navigate the complex bureaucracy that governed arena operations. The humans' arrival had already generated significant interest among the administrative staff. Humans were known throughout the galaxy, but none had ever competed in the arena. Kai represented an entire species making its debut on the greatest stage in known space. The registration facility occupied an entire deck of the station, staffed by beings from dozens of worlds who processed applications, verified credentials, and assigned living quarters to new fighters. Kai's paperwork was unusual. He had no combat record, no formal training certificates, no previous tournament experience. Under normal circumstances, such a candidate would be rejected immediately. However, Vexstar's sponsorship carried enormous weight. The Chromakian ambassador had discovered 17 previous arena champions, his judgment respected throughout the combat community. When Vexstar vouched for Kai's potential, officials took notice. The medical examination required for all arena participants revealed fascinating information about human physiology. Dr. Krill, an insectoid Mantari physician, conducted extensive tests on Kai's reflexes, endurance, and recovery capabilities. The results surprised everyone involved. Remarkable, Dr. Krill chittered, his compound eyes reviewing the data streams. Human muscular efficiency exceeds most known standards. Bone density suggests natural resistance to impact trauma. Most interesting is the neural response time. This species processes combat information faster than theoretical optimums. The examination also revealed Kai's unique adaptability. When presented with various atmospheric conditions, gravitational fields, and environmental challenges, his body adjusted more quickly than any species on record. This suggested humans could compete effectively across the arena's diverse combat environments. Kai's living quarters were assigned in the novice section, a modest but comfortable space that included training access and basic amenities. His neighbors included fighters from various worlds, most of whom had been training for years before gaining arena admission. Word of the humans' arrival spread quickly through the novice community. Zara, a young Aquarian whose species resembled humanoid dolphins, became Kai's first friend in the arena. Her people were natural swimmers who fought using water manipulation and fluid combat techniques. She approached Kai with curious enthusiasm, eager to learn about human fighting methods. "I watched recordings of your assessment," she said, her voice carrying the melodic quality of her species. "Your style is unlike anything in the databases. How do humans typically train for combat?" Kai found himself explaining that humans didn't have a single combat tradition. Instead, they had developed hundreds of different martial arts, weapons techniques, and fighting philosophies throughout their history. This diversity allowed him to draw from multiple sources when creating his hybrid fighting style. "But, which style is considered supreme among your people?" Zara asked, genuinely puzzled. "None of them," Kai replied. "Humans believe the best fighting style is the one that adapts to any situation. We don't seek perfection in a single technique, we seek efficiency through versatility." This philosophy was revolutionary in arena culture. Most species had refined their combat techniques over millennia, developing highly specialized fighting styles that represented the pinnacle of their martial evolution. The concept of deliberately combining multiple traditions was considered chaotic and inefficient by conventional standards. Kai's initial training sessions attracted growing audiences of curious fighters and staff members. The arena's training facilities were extensive, featuring environments that could simulate conditions from hundreds of different worlds. Kai rotated through various settings, adapting his techniques to each new challenge. In the low-gravity chamber, he developed flowing, airborne combinations that took advantage of extended hang time. In the high-gravity environment, he created compact, efficient movements that conserved energy while maintaining power. The variable atmosphere training rooms allowed him to practice fighting while managing different breathing requirements. But, it was in the multi-opponent simulation chamber that Kai truly demonstrated his potential. While most fighters specialized in single combat, Kai seemed to thrive when facing multiple adversaries simultaneously. His ability to track numerous threats, coordinate attacks against several targets, and use environmental factors to his advantage was unprecedented. Master Thorak, a veteran Kratosian trainer, observed Kai's sessions with growing interest. Thorak had trained champions from a dozen species over his long career, but he had never encountered anyone like this young human. Kai's techniques violated established principles of combat efficiency, yet somehow achieved superior results. "Your approach to combat is illogical," Thorak told Kai after a particularly impressive training session. "You waste motion, you ignore optimal attack angles, you deliberately choose inefficient weapon grips. Yet you defeat opponents faster than fighters with decades of experience." Kai struggled to explain his methods. His techniques felt natural, instinctive, but he couldn't always articulate the reasoning behind his choices. "I don't fight against my opponents," he finally said. "I fight with the situation. I use whatever works best in that specific moment, even if it's not perfect technique. This conversation was recorded and later became required study material for arena strategists. Kai had inadvertently described a completely new approach to combat philosophy, one that prioritized adaptability over technical perfection, results over form. His first official match was scheduled against Rexfor, a young Zephyrian who had recently graduated from novice status. Rexfor was considered a rising star among his people, possessing exceptional light manipulation abilities and traditional blade work that had earned him victories against fighters from 6 different species. The announcement of this match generated unexpected interest throughout the arena. Betting pools opened with heavy odds favoring Rexfor, who possessed years of training and a proven combat record. Most spectators viewed the match as an opportunity to see how humans would perform in actual arena combat. Kai spent the days leading up to the match studying recordings of Rexfor's previous fights. The Zephyrian fought with elegant precision, using his species' natural light-bending abilities to create visual illusions while employing classical sword techniques that had been refined over centuries. Rexfor's style was beautiful, efficient, and devastatingly effective. Vexstar worked with Kai to develop specific strategies for countering Zephyrian advantages. They practiced fighting while visually impaired, relying on other senses to track opponents. Kai learned to recognize the subtle energy signatures that preceded light manipulation attacks. Most importantly, they developed techniques for disrupting the concentration required for complex illusion work. The match was scheduled in Arena 7, a mid-sized venue that typically hosted novice competitions. However, advance ticket sales exceeded all projections, forcing officials to relocate the event to Arena 3, which could accommodate over 1 million spectators. The unexpected popularity of this previously routine match caught everyone off guard. On the day of the fight, Kai felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness unlike anything he had experienced during training. The weight of representing his entire species added pressure beyond normal pre-match anxiety. As he prepared in his private chamber, putting on the basic combat armor provided to novice fighters, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment. The arena entrance was a spectacle designed to intimidate and inspire. Kai walked through a tunnel lined with holographic displays showing highlights from arena history. The greatest fighters in galactic history appeared around him, their legendary battles playing out in miniature as he passed. The tunnel opened onto the fighting floor, revealing a sea of spectators that stretched beyond his ability to process. The noise was overwhelming, millions of beings cheering, calling out in hundreds of different languages, creating a symphony of sound that seemed to vibrate through Kai's bones. He had watched arena matches on holoscreen for years, but the experience of standing in the center of that energy was beyond anything he could have imagined. Rexfor entered from the opposite side, his crystalline form refracting the arena lights into dazzling patterns. The Zephyrian moved with the fluid grace characteristic of his species, acknowledging the crowd's cheers with practiced confidence. He had fought in smaller arenas before, gradually working his way up to this prestigious venue. The referee, a neutral artificial intelligence with a holographic form, announced the fighters and explained the match conditions. Standard arena rules applied: victory through surrender, incapacitation, or death. Weapons were limited to energy blades and personal equipment. Environmental hazards would be minimal for this novice-level competition. As the opening ceremony concluded and the fighters took their positions, something unexpected happened. The crowd, which had been enthusiastically supporting both fighters, began to quiet. A strange anticipation filled the air, as if millions of beings sensed they were about to witness something significant. Kai centered himself, drawing on the meditation techniques he had practiced during his journey to the arena. He pushed aside thoughts of the crowd, the pressure, the magnitude of the moment. Instead, he focused on the fire that had brought him here, the same inner flame that had driven his secret training sessions behind the equipment shed. The starting signal echoed through the arena, and Rexfor immediately began his attack sequence. Light bent around him as he activated his species' natural camouflage abilities, making his exact position difficult to determine. His energy blade hummed as he moved in the classical Zephyrian attack pattern, approaching from multiple apparent angles simultaneously. Kai's response surprised everyone watching. Instead of trying to track Rexfor visually, he closed his eyes and relied on other senses. The Zephyrian's illusions were designed to confuse sight, but they couldn't mask sound, air movement, or the subtle energy signatures of his equipment. When Rex 4 committed to his first strike, coming from what he believed was a perfect blind angle, Kai was already moving. His counterattack was unlike anything in the arena databases, a spinning movement that combined elements of human martial arts with adaptations from alien techniques he had studied. The clash of energy blades created a brilliant flash that temporarily blinded spectators in the first several rows. When their vision cleared, they saw something that would be replayed billions of times across the galaxy. Kai had not only blocked Rex 4's attack but had somehow used the Zephyrian's own momentum to throw him across the arena floor. The crowd's reaction was immediate and overwhelming. They had expected to see a novice human struggle against an experienced Zephyrian. Instead, they witnessed the beginning of something entirely new in combat sports. Rex 4 recovered quickly, his training taking over despite his surprise. He activated more complex illusion patterns, creating multiple false images while masking his true location. This technique had defeated numerous opponents, overwhelming them with too many targets to track simultaneously. Kai's solution was characteristically unconventional. Instead of trying to identify the real Rex 4 among the illusions, he attacked all of them at once. Using a technique he had developed during multi-opponent training, he created a whirling pattern of strikes that covered the entire area where Rex 4 could possibly be hiding. The strategy worked perfectly. Unable to maintain his illusions while defending against the comprehensive attack, Rex 4 was forced to reveal himself. The two fighters engaged in direct combat, energy blades crackling as they tested each other's skills. What followed was a display of fighting technique that redefined arena standards. Kai's hybrid style flowed seamlessly between different combat philosophies, adapting constantly to Rex 4's classical techniques. Where the Zephyrian relied on centuries of refined tradition, Kai employed creative improvisation that seemed to invent new moves in real time. The match lasted 18 minutes, far longer than most novice competitions. Both fighters demonstrated exceptional skill, pushing each other to perform beyond their normal capabilities. But it was Kai who ultimately achieved victory, using a final combination that incorporated elements from 4 different species fighting styles into an attack sequence that no defense could have anticipated. As Rex 4 acknowledged defeat and the crowd erupted in celebration, Kai realized that everything had changed. The quiet farm boy from New Harmony was gone, replaced by Silent Thunder, the human fighter who had just announced his species' arrival in arena competition. The aftermath of the match exceeded all expectations. Video recordings spread across the galactic communication network faster than any previous arena content. Combat analysts from dozens of species requested copies for study. Training academies began incorporating Kai's techniques into their curricula. But, perhaps most importantly, young fighters throughout the galaxy began to question established wisdom about combat technique. If a human with no formal training could defeat an experienced champion by ignoring conventional rules, what other possibilities existed? Kai's victory celebration was subdued, reflecting his natural personality rather than arena traditions. He thanked Rex 4 for an honorable match, acknowledged the crowd's enthusiasm, and retreated to his quarters to process what had happened. Vexstar found him there hours later, staring out at the stars visible through the chamber's viewport. The ambassador's skin glowed with pride and anticipation. "You understand what you've accomplished," Vexstar said. "This was more than a victory. You've begun a revolution." Kai nodded slowly, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He had come to the arena to pursue his dreams, but he was beginning to understand that his journey would impact far more than his own future. "What happens now?" Kai asked. Vexstar's skin shifted through several colors before settling on determined silver. "Now you face increasingly difficult challenges. Your next opponents will study your techniques, develop counter-strategies, and test you in ways you haven't yet imagined. But I believe you're ready for whatever comes next." As Kai prepared for sleep that night, he reflected on how much his life had changed in such a short time. The arena was everything he had dreamed it would be, but it was also more complex, more demanding, and more significant than he had anticipated. Tomorrow would bring new training, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove himself. But tonight, Silent Thunder had earned the right to rest, knowing that his name was already being spoken across the galaxy with respect and anticipation. The victory against Rex 4 transformed Kai from an unknown novice into arena sensation. Within days, his fighting footage had been viewed over 1 trillion times across the galactic network. Combat academies purchased licenses to study his techniques, while entertainment networks competed for exclusive interview rights. Kai found himself thrust into a level of celebrity that no human had ever experienced. The arena administration, recognizing the unprecedented interest in their newest fighter, accelerated Kai's advancement schedule. Typically, novice fighters competed monthly, building experience gradually through carefully matched opponents. Kai's obvious capabilities and massive audience appeal warranted a more aggressive approach. His second match was scheduled just 2 weeks after the HFY victory, this time against Grexthar, a veteran Kratosian warrior with 43 arena victories. Unlike HFY's elegant technique-based fighting style, Grexthar represented pure physical dominance. Standing nearly 9 feet tall and possessing 4 powerful arms, Grexthar specialized in overwhelming opponents through superior strength and endurance. The contrast between fighters couldn't have been more dramatic. Kai appeared almost fragile beside the massive Kratosian, who possessed muscle mass equivalent to 3 human fighters combined. Betting odds heavily favored Grexthar, with most analysts predicting Kai's fighting style would prove ineffective against such overwhelming physical advantages. Preparing for this match required Kai to develop entirely new strategies. His training focused on mobility, evasion, and techniques for fighting larger opponents. Master Thorak proved invaluable during this preparation, sharing insights gained through decades of observing Kratosian combat methods. Grexthar fights like a living siege engine, Thorak explained during a strategy session. He seeks to corner opponents, then uses his forearms to create an inescapable web of attacks. His endurance is legendary. He has won matches that lasted over 3 hours through pure attrition. Kai studied recordings of Grexthar's previous fights, noting patterns in his attack sequences and identifying potential weaknesses in his technique. The Kratosian style was brutally effective but somewhat predictable, relying on established patterns that had served him well throughout his career. The key insight came during a sparring session with multiple training partners. Kai realized that while Grexthar's forearms provided obvious advantages, they also created coordination challenges that could be exploited by a sufficiently mobile opponent. Each arm operated somewhat independently, creating tiny gaps in timing that a fast enough fighter might utilize. Match preparation also included equipment modifications. Kai's standard energy blade was supplemented with a secondary weapon system, twin short blades that could be wielded simultaneously for rapid strike combinations. This unconventional loadout puzzled arena veterans, as most fighters preferred to master a single weapon rather than divide their focus between multiple tools. The media attention surrounding this match exceeded even the HFY fight. Major news networks throughout the galaxy featured analysis segments, while combat experts debated whether human fighting techniques could overcome such obvious physical disadvantages. The match was moved to Arena 1, the largest venue in the complex, to accommodate the enormous audience demand. Kai's pre-match routine had evolved to include meditation sessions designed to maintain focus despite massive external pressure. The roar of over 5 million spectators could be overwhelming, but Kai had learned to channel that energy into heightened awareness rather than anxiety. Grexthar entered the arena with confidence born of experience. His previous opponents had typically tried to match his strength or outmaneuver his reach, strategies he had defeated countless times. He expected this young human to employ similar tactics, making the match a relatively straightforward demonstration of Kratosian superiority. The opening minutes of the fight seemed to confirm Grexthar's expectations. Kai remained at maximum distance, darting around the arena's perimeter while the Kratosian advanced steadily. To casual observers, it appeared the human was simply avoiding inevitable defeat through desperate mobility. However, Kai wasn't running, he was gathering information. Each of Grexthar's movements provided data about his reaction times, preferred attack angles, and coordination patterns between his forearms. Kai mapped these observations in real time, building a comprehensive understanding of his opponent's capabilities. When Kai finally engaged in direct combat, his strategy became clear. Instead of trying to overpower or outreach Grexthar, he focused on disrupting the Kratosian's timing. Using his twin short blades in rapid combinations, Kai attacked from angles that forced Grexthar to coordinate defensive responses across all 4 arms simultaneously. The technique was exhausting for both fighters but particularly challenging for Grexthar, whose fighting style depended on controlled, powerful movements. Kai's unpredictable attack patterns prevented the Kratosian from settling into his preferred rhythm, forcing him to react constantly rather than dictating the fight's pace. Spectators witnessed a battle that redefined their understanding of combat strategy. Kai transformed the arena floor into a three-dimensional chess game, using movement, positioning, and timing to neutralize advantages that should have been insurmountable. His attacks came from unexpected directions, often using the arena's architecture to create leverage that augmented his limited strength. The turning point came when Kai executed a maneuver that would later be studied in tactical academies across the galaxy. Feigning exhaustion, he allowed Grexthar to corner him against the arena wall. As the Kratosian committed to a devastating forearm attack combination, Kai used the wall itself as a launching point, propelling himself over Grexthar's strikes and landing behind the surprised warrior. Before Grexthar could turn to face this new position, Kai's twin blades found the gaps in his opponent's armor, delivering precise strikes that disabled two of the Kratosian's arms without causing permanent injury. Suddenly, the fight became much more even. What followed was a masterclass in adaptive combat. With only two functional arms, Grexthar was forced to abandon his traditional fighting style and improvise new techniques. The veteran warrior proved remarkably adaptable, but Kai's hybrid approach gave him advantages in this unprecedented situation. The match concluded with both fighters earning mutual respect. Grexthar, recognizing that continued fighting would likely result in serious injury, formally conceded victory while acknowledging Kai's superior tactics. The crowd's response was thunderous, appreciating both fighters' display of skill and sportsmanship. Post-match interviews revealed the impact Kai's victories were having throughout the galactic combat community. Training methodologies that had remained unchanged for centuries were suddenly being questioned. Young fighters began experimenting with hybrid techniques, while established warriors studied human combat philosophies for insights that might improve their own skills. Dr. Zenthara, a renowned Altarian combat theorist, published a comprehensive analysis of Kai's fighting methods that became required reading in military academies. Her conclusions were revolutionary. This human represents an evolutionary leap in combat thinking. While his individual techniques may appear crude compared to refined alien standards, his integration of multiple fighting philosophies creates emergent capabilities that exceed the sum of their parts. Kai's third match was against Sylara, a Morphean shapeshifter whose species possessed perhaps the most unique fighting abilities in the arena. Morpheans could alter their physical structure, extending limbs, creating additional appendages, or transforming their bodies into living weapons. Sylara was considered one of the most dangerous fighters in her weight class, having defeated opponents through sheer biological versatility. Preparing for this match required Kai to completely reconsider his approach to combat. Previous opponents had possessed advantages he could study and counter through technique and strategy. Sylara's abilities were fundamentally different. She could literally become whatever the situation required, making conventional preparation nearly impossible. Vexstar arranged for Kai to train with holographic simulations of Morphean fighters, but the experience proved frustrating. Each simulation behaved differently, and the real Sylara might possess capabilities not represented in any database. Kai realized he would need to abandon detailed planning in favor of pure adaptability. This match was promoted as the ultimate test of Kai's hybrid fighting philosophy. Arena analysts questioned whether human techniques could overcome an opponent capable of changing the fundamental nature of combat in real time. The event generated the highest advance ticket sales in arena history. The fight began with Sylara in her basic humanoid form, using conventional weapons to test Kai's responses. This initial phase resembled a traditional combat match, allowing both fighters to assess each other's capabilities. Kai employed his now familiar strategy of gathering information while avoiding decisive engagement. As the match progressed, Sylara began employing her shape-shifting abilities. Her arms extended to increase reach, additional limbs sprouted to create new attack angles, and her torso became flexible enough to avoid strikes that should have connected. Kai found himself fighting an opponent who literally evolved during combat. The key to Kai's eventual victory lay in recognizing patterns within Sylara's transformations. While her physical changes appeared random, they followed biological limitations and energy conservation principles. Each major transformation required significant metabolic resources, and maintaining complex forms created increasing strain over time. Kai adapted his strategy to exploit these constraints. Instead of trying to overcome Silara's transformations, he focused on forcing her to employ the most energy-intensive changes repeatedly. His unpredictable attack patterns required constant adaptation, gradually exhausting his opponent's shapeshifting reserves. The match's climax came when Silara attempted her most dramatic transformation, converting her entire body into a massive tentacled form designed to ensnare and crush opponents. The change was spectacular but represented an enormous energy investment that left her vulnerable if she couldn't achieve quick victory. Kai's response demonstrated the culmination of everything he had learned in the arena. Instead of fleeing or trying to break free if captured, he deliberately allowed Silara to partially ensnare him while positioning himself for a counterattack. Using techniques adapted from all his previous matches, he delivered precise strikes to nerve clusters that forced Silara to revert to her basic form while she was too exhausted to mount further resistance. The victory established Kai as a legitimate contender for arena championship status. His unconventional methods had now proven effective against technique-based fighters, strength-based opponents, and shapeshifters capable of fundamental biological adaptation. Arena rankings officials accelerated his advancement to intermediate status, typically requiring years of gradual progression. Media coverage of Kai's matches had evolved beyond simple sports reporting into cultural phenomenon. Universities offered courses analyzing human combat philosophy, while alien governments requested detailed reports on human military capabilities based on Kai's performances. His success was being interpreted as evidence that humanity might possess strategic advantages not previously recognized by galactic civilization. The psychological impact on other arena fighters was significant. Traditional training methods were being questioned throughout the combat community, with many fighters experimenting with hybrid techniques inspired by Kai's example. However, direct imitation proved difficult. Kai's style required the specific combination of human physiology, cultural background, and individual creativity that couldn't be easily replicated. His fourth major match was against Zexkala, an ethereal being whose species existed partially outside normal spacetime. Ethereals could phase through solid matter, manipulate probability fields, and attack from dimensional angles that conventional defenses couldn't address. Zexkala represented perhaps the most exotic challenge Kai had yet faced. This match pushed Kai beyond physical combat into realms approaching theoretical physics. Training required him to study dimensional mechanics, probability mathematics, and esoteric energy manipulation techniques that few non-ethereal beings ever mastered. The experience expanded his understanding of combat beyond anything he had previously imagined. The fight itself was visually spectacular, with Zexkala appearing and disappearing throughout the arena while probability distortions created seemingly impossible events. Kai found himself adapting to combat conditions that violated basic principles of reality as most species understood them. Victory came through Kai's recognition that ethereal abilities, despite their exotic nature, still followed consistent rules. By observing the patterns underlying Zexkala's dimensional manipulations, he developed counter-strategies that used mathematical principles rather than physical techniques. The match became as much intellectual challenge as physical contest. When Zexkala finally acknowledged defeat, she offered a comment that would be quoted throughout the galaxy: "This human fights not just with body and mind, but with the fundamental essence of adaptability itself. He has shown us new possibilities in the art of combat." Kai's victory over Zexkala marked his transition into arena elite status. He had defeated representative fighters from 4 major galactic species, each using completely different combat approaches. His techniques had evolved with each match, creating a fighting style that seemed capable of infinite adaptation. The implications extended far beyond entertainment. Military strategists throughout the galaxy began studying human tactical thinking, recognizing potential applications to interstellar conflict resolution. Diplomatic corps included references to human adaptability in their cultural analysis reports. Academic institutions established new research programs focused on human psychological and physical capabilities. But, perhaps most significantly, Kai's success had inspired other humans to pursue arena careers. Applications from Earth and human colonies increased dramatically, as young people recognized that their species possessed unique advantages in galactic combat sports. The arena's human population grew from 1 to dozens within months of Kai's first victory. As Kai prepared for his next challenge, advancement to championship-level competition, he reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. The quiet farm boy who had practiced behind equipment sheds had become a galactic celebrity whose fighting techniques were studied by billions of beings across countless worlds. Yet despite the fame and recognition, Kai remained focused on the inner fire that had brought him to the arena. Each victory was not just personal achievement but proof that human adaptability could overcome any challenge. His journey was far from complete, with championship matches promising even greater tests of his abilities. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity's true strength lay not in superior technology or overwhelming force, but in their species' remarkable ability to learn, adapt, and find solutions that others considered impossible. Through Kai's victories, humans were announcing their presence as a force worthy of respect and recognition in galactic civilization. Silent Thunder had become more than a fighting name, it had become a symbol of human potential waiting to be fully unleashed. Kai's elevation to championship status brought challenges that transcended physical combat. The arena's upper echelons were dominated by beings who had perfected their fighting arts across centuries of competition. These were not just skilled fighters but living legends whose names were spoken with reverence throughout galactic civilization. His first championship-level opponent was Vornash the Eternal, an ancient being whose exact species had been forgotten by galactic historians. Vornash claimed to have been fighting in arena competition for over 800 years, accumulating wisdom and technique that bordered on the mystical. His record included victories against champions from every known species, making him perhaps the most experienced fighter in arena history. The match was scheduled in the Grand Coliseum, the arena's most prestigious venue, capable of accommodating 50 million spectators while projecting the event to billions more across the galaxy. This would be Kai's first appearance in the venue where legends were born and careers were defined for eternity. Preparing for Vornash required Kai to confront limitations he had never previously encountered. His opponent's vast experience meant that conventional strategies would likely prove ineffective. Vornash had seen every fighting technique, faced every type of opponent, and survived challenges that had ended countless other careers. Master Thorak approached this training period with unusual solemnity. Vornash is beyond normal category, he explained during their strategy sessions. He does not simply fight opponents, he studies them completely, understanding their psychology, their techniques, and their weaknesses better than they understand themselves. Many champions have defeated him temporarily, only to lose when he adapts and overcomes their strategies. The training focused on developing techniques that could evolve during combat, creating fighting approaches that could change faster than even Vornash could analyze them. Kai practiced improvisational combinations that had never been attempted before, developing muscle memory for techniques that existed only in theoretical possibility. Vextar used his diplomatic connections to gather intelligence about Vornash's recent matches, searching for patterns that might indicate the ancient fighter's current tactical preferences. The research revealed disturbing information. Vornash seemed to be growing stronger over time, his recent victories coming easier than those from decades past. It's as if he learns something permanent from each defeat he inflicts, Vextar observed, his skin displaying concerned purple tones. His knowledge accumulates while his opponents start fresh each time. You're not just fighting one being, you're fighting the collective experience of centuries of arena competition. The psychological pressure surrounding this match was unprecedented. Media coverage portrayed it as a test of whether human adaptability could overcome the most extreme accumulation of combat knowledge in galactic history. Betting odds favored Vornash overwhelmingly, with most analysts predicting that Kai's unconventional methods would prove insufficient against such vast experience. Kai found himself studying not just combat techniques but philosophy, psychology, and even xenoarchaeology in attempts to understand Vornash's mindset. The ancient fighter's interviews revealed a being who viewed combat as an art form approaching religious significance. He spoke of achieving unity with the eternal nature of conflict itself. 3 days before the match, Kai made a decision that surprised his entire support team. He stopped all tactical preparation and, instead, focused on meditation and self-reflection. While conventional wisdom demanded last-minute strategy refinement, Kai chose to center himself on the fundamental principles that had brought him this far. I can't out-experience someone with 8 centuries of combat knowledge, he explained to a concerned Vextar. But I can be more myself than he can be anyone else. My advantage isn't in knowing more, it's in being able to discover solutions that don't exist yet. The pre-match ceremony in the Grand Coliseum was spectacular beyond anything Kai had previously experienced. Holographic displays showed highlights from arena history, while representatives from hundreds of worlds offered ceremonial tributes to both fighters. The event had transcended sports entertainment to become a cultural celebration of galactic diversity. Vornash appeared exactly as his reputation suggested, an imposing figure whose very presence seemed to carry the weight of centuries. His movements displayed perfect economy and precision, each gesture flowing naturally into the next with the grace of someone who had eliminated all unnecessary motion from his existence. When the two fighters stood facing each other in the center of the Grand Colosseum, the contrast was striking. Kai appeared young and energetic beside Vornash's ancient composure, representing innovation challenging tradition on the greatest stage in known space. The opening moments of the match revealed Vornash's incredible skill. His attacks came from angles that seemed to predict Kai's movements before Kai himself understood his intentions. The ancient fighter's defensive work was flawless, neutralizing techniques that had proven effective against every previous opponent. For the first time since entering arena competition, Kai found himself genuinely outmatched in direct combat. Vornash's experience allowed him to recognize and counter Kai's hybrid techniques almost instantly. Strategies that had required multiple matches to defeat now proved ineffective within minutes. However, Kai's response demonstrated the maturation his fighting philosophy had undergone through months of arena competition. Instead of becoming frustrated or attempting to force ineffective strategies, he embraced the uncertainty of the situation and began developing entirely new approaches in real time. The turning point came when Kai stopped trying to employ techniques altogether and instead began fighting purely on instinct. This approach created something that had never existed before, combat movements that were being invented in the moment of execution, making them impossible for even Vornash to predict or counter. What followed was perhaps the most extraordinary display of adaptive combat ever witnessed in arena history. Kai's movements became increasingly fluid and unpredictable, while Vornash found himself forced to rely on reactive strategies for the first time in centuries. The ancient fighter's vast experience became less relevant when facing techniques that had never existed before. The crowd's reaction evolved from excited anticipation to stunned silence to explosive celebration as they realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Kai wasn't just fighting Vornash, he was demonstrating that creativity and adaptability could overcome even the most accumulated wisdom and experience. The match lasted nearly 4 hours, pushing both fighters beyond their normal limitations. Vornash displayed combat knowledge that seemed almost supernatural, while Kai continuously evolved his approach to stay ahead of his opponent's analytical capabilities. Neither fighter had ever been challenged so completely. Victory came not through a single decisive moment but through gradual accumulation of small advantages. Kai's constant innovation eventually overwhelmed Vornash's ability to adapt, creating enough openings for a successful final combination. When the ancient fighter finally acknowledged defeat, he offered words that would be remembered throughout arena history. In 800 years of combat, I have never faced an opponent who could teach me something new during our match, Vornash said. This human has shown me possibilities I never imagined. His victory is earned through representing something beyond mere fighting technique. He embodies the principle of endless adaptation itself. The aftermath of this victory transformed Kai from arena sensation into galactic phenomenon. His defeat of Vornash was analyzed by military strategists, philosophers, and cultural historians as evidence that innovation could overcome even the most established traditions. Young beings throughout the galaxy began questioning conventional wisdom in fields far beyond combat sports. Kai's championship status was confirmed through subsequent matches against other legendary fighters. He defeated Kestera the Mindbreaker, whose psychic abilities had dominated opponents for decades. He overcame Dulreth the World Shaker, whose connection to planetary energy fields had made him seemingly invincible in arena competition. Each victory demonstrated different aspects of human adaptability. Against psychic opponents, Kai developed mental discipline techniques that protected his thoughts while maintaining combat effectiveness. Against energy manipulators, he created strategies that used their own power against them through careful positioning and timing. But perhaps his most significant championship victory came against Nexus Prime, an artificial intelligence that had been designed specifically for arena combat. Nexus Prime represented the pinnacle of calculated fighting efficiency, processing millions of combat variables simultaneously while executing techniques with mechanical precision. This match required Kai to overcome an opponent that could literally think faster than he could move. Nexus Prime's responses were mathematically optimal, its strategies calculated for maximum effectiveness against every possible human technique. The AI had been programmed with complete knowledge of Kai's previous matches, giving it theoretical advantages that should have been insurmountable. Kai's victory against Nexus Prime came through embracing aspects of human nature that couldn't be quantified or predicted. He fought with emotions, instincts, and creative impulses that existed outside logical frameworks. His techniques included deliberate inefficiencies that confused the AI's optimization protocols, creating openings in defenses designed to be perfect. The philosophical implications of this victory resonated throughout galactic civilization. If human unpredictability could overcome optimal AI strategies, what did this suggest about the nature of consciousness, creativity, and the value of imperfection in an increasingly technological universe? Kai's championship reign lasted 18 months, during which he defended his title against challengers from across the galaxy. Each match added to his legend while demonstrating new applications of human adaptability. His fighting style continued evolving, incorporating elements he encountered from each opponent while maintaining the core principle of constant innovation. The impact on human culture was profound. Young people from Earth and human colonies flocked to the arena, establishing humanity as a major force in galactic combat sports. Human fighting techniques were studied and adapted by other species, while human strategic thinking influenced military academies throughout known space. More importantly, Kai's success changed how humanity was perceived by galactic civilization. Previously viewed as a minor species with limited special capabilities, humans were now recognized as possessing unique advantages that made them valuable allies and formidable opponents. Diplomatic relations improved dramatically as other species sought to understand human psychological and tactical capabilities. Trade agreements became more favorable as human adaptability was recognized as a significant asset in complex negotiations. Military cooperation increased as human strategic thinking proved valuable in addressing unconventional threats. Kai's championship status also attracted challenges from beyond the arena's traditional boundaries. Ancient beings emerged from isolation to test themselves against the human who had redefined combat possibilities. Interdimensional entities requested matches to study human creativity through direct confrontation. Even representatives of species previously unknown to galactic civilization sought opportunities to understand human adaptability. Each new challenge pushed Kai to discover additional capabilities he hadn't known he possessed. His fighting evolution continued accelerating, creating techniques that influenced combat development across multiple species. He became not just a champion but a catalyst for advancement in the fighting arts themselves. However, success also brought complications that tested Kai's character beyond the arena floor. Fame created pressures and responsibilities that were difficult to navigate. Political factions sought to use his celebrity for their own purposes, while commercial interests offered enormous compensation for endorsements and exclusive contracts. Kai's response to these pressures revealed the maturity his experiences had developed. He remained focused on the principles that had brought him success, refusing opportunities that would compromise his integrity or distract from his continued growth as a fighter. His decisions were guided by the same adaptability that defined his combat style, finding solutions that honored his values while meeting his responsibilities. As his championship reign approached its climax, Kai understood that his greatest challenge lay ahead. The arena's ultimate test was approaching, the opportunity to face the legendary Grand Champion, a being whose identity was shrouded in mystery and whose combat capabilities were the subject of galactic speculation. This upcoming match would determine not just Kai's individual legacy but humanity's place in the hierarchy of galactic civilization. The stakes had grown beyond personal achievement to encompass the future of human participation in galactic affairs. Silent Thunder had proven that humans belonged among the galaxy's elite fighters, but the final test would determine whether they could claim their place among the truly legendary beings whose names would be remembered across the ages. The announcement came without warning, as all truly significant events do. Kai was finishing his morning training routine when Vextar burst into the chamber, his skin cycling through every color in the Chromakian spectrum with unprecedented speed. The message was simple but earth-shattering: the Grand Champion had accepted Kai's challenge. For over a millennium, the identity of the arena's Grand Champion had remained one of the galaxy's greatest mysteries. No recordings existed of their matches, no interviews had ever been granted, and no being claimed to have seen them outside of combat. They appeared only for challenges deemed worthy of their attention, fought matches that became legend, then vanished back into obscurity. What made this acceptance remarkable was that the grand champion had never faced the same challenger twice. Throughout arena history, beings who lost to the grand champion were considered to have reached the absolute peak of their potential. Victory against the grand champion was theoretical, many scholars doubted it was even possible. The announcement triggered unprecedented excitement throughout galactic civilization. Betting pools opened with odds so extreme they approached mathematical abstraction. Scholars debated whether human adaptability could overcome an opponent whose capabilities remained completely unknown. Religious leaders declared the upcoming match a test of fundamental cosmic principles. Kai's preparation for this ultimate challenge required approaches that transcended normal training methods. Since nothing was known about the grand champion's fighting style, species, or capabilities, conventional strategy development was impossible. Instead, Kai focused on perfecting his adaptability itself, preparing for literally any possibility. Master Thorak designed training scenarios that violated basic principles of reality. Using advanced holographic technology, Kai practiced fighting opponents who could manipulate time, alter gravity, reshape matter at will, and employ capabilities that existed only in theoretical physics. The goal was not to master specific counter techniques but to develop reflexes that could respond to absolutely anything. Vexstar coordinated with arena officials to access historical records that might contain clues about the grand champion's identity. The search revealed tantalizing fragments, energy signatures that didn't match any known species, combat footage that had been mysteriously corrupted, and witness testimonies that contradicted each other so completely they seemed to describe different beings entirely. It's as if the grand champion exists partially outside normal spacetime, Vexstar observed during one research session. Every piece of evidence about them is contradictory or incomplete. They might not follow the same physical laws that govern the rest of us. The psychological preparation proved as important as physical training. Kai meditated for hours daily, strengthening his mental discipline and centering himself on the principles that had guided his arena career. He studied human philosophical traditions, searching for insights that might provide advantages against an opponent who transcended normal understanding. Media coverage reached levels that strained galactic communication networks. The match was declared a galactic holiday by 17 different species governments, while universities postponed examinations to allow students to witness what many considered the most significant sporting event in recorded history. Economic activity across entire star systems adjusted around the match schedule. The build-up period also attracted attention from beings who had never shown interest in arena competition. Ancient entities emerged from isolation to observe the match, while interdimensional researchers requested permission to study the event's implications. The contest had evolved beyond entertainment into a moment of cosmic significance. 3 weeks before the match, Kai made his final major preparation decision. Following instincts that had never led him astray, he returned to New Harmony for a brief visit with his parents. The journey took him away from arena training facilities at a crucial time, but Kai felt the need to reconnect with his roots before facing his ultimate challenge. New Harmony had changed dramatically since Kai's departure. His success had brought prosperity to the entire agricultural world, as tourists flocked to see where the famous Silent Thunder had grown up. However, the Chen family farm remained exactly as Kai remembered it, his parents having resisted all pressures to commercialize their son's heritage. Spending time in the fields where he had once practiced in secret, Kai rediscovered the inner fire that had originally driven him toward the arena. Away from the pressures of galactic celebrity, he remembered the simple joy of pushing himself beyond perceived limitations. This reconnection with his fundamental motivation proved more valuable than any technical training could have been. His parents, who had followed his career with mixture of pride and worry, offered insights that surprised him with their wisdom. Maria Chin observed that Kai's greatest strength had always been his willingness to remain himself despite external pressures. David Chin noted that successful farming required the same adaptability that defined Kai's fighting style, the ability to respond to changing conditions while maintaining focus on essential goals. When Kai returned to the arena, his support team immediately noticed changes in his demeanor. He appeared more centered, more confident, and somehow more connected to the abilities that had brought him this far. The brief return to his origins had reminded him that his strength came not from arena training but from fundamental aspects of human nature itself. The match was scheduled in the Eternal Amphitheater, a venue that existed in a space between dimensions and could accommodate unlimited spectators while maintaining perfect viewing conditions for each individual observer. The amphitheater was used only for events of cosmic significance, having hosted fewer than a dozen matches throughout arena history. On the day of the match, Kai's preparation ritual reflected the journey he had taken from farm boy to galactic champion. He wore simple training clothes beneath his combat armor, carried a photo of his parents, and spent his final moments in meditation rather than tactical review. His approach embodied the human philosophy that had brought him this far, remaining authentic while adapting to any challenge. The pre-match ceremony was unlike anything previously witnessed in arena competition. Representatives from every known species offered ceremonial tributes, while beings of incredible age and wisdom spoke of the match's significance for galactic civilization. The event had transcended sports to become a celebration of existence itself. When the Grand Champion finally appeared, the sight defied every expectation and theory that had been proposed about their identity. They appeared to be constantly shifting between different forms, sometimes resembling known species, sometimes taking shapes that couldn't be categorized or understood. Their presence seemed to bend reality around them, creating visual effects that challenged observers' perception. Standing opposite this impossible being, Kai felt simultaneously intimidated and exhilarated. Everything he had trained for, every principle he had developed, every technique he had mastered, all of it would be tested against an opponent who embodied mystery itself. The match began with the Grand Champion apparently testing Kai's capabilities. Their initial attacks came from multiple vectors simultaneously, as if they were fighting from several different dimensional planes at once. Kai's response drew upon every lesson he had learned throughout his arena career, adapting in real time to combat conditions that violated basic understanding of physics. What became clear as the match progressed was that the Grand Champion possessed every fighting technique that had ever been developed by any species throughout galactic history. They could employ Zephyrian light manipulation, Kratosian strength techniques, Morphean shapeshifting, ethereal dimensional abilities, and countless other capabilities with perfect mastery. Kai realized he wasn't just fighting an opponent, he was battling the collected combat knowledge of galactic civilization itself. The Grand Champion represented the pinnacle of everything that was known about fighting, the ultimate expression of traditional martial development. His response to this revelation demonstrated how completely his fighting philosophy had evolved since arriving at the arena. Instead of trying to match the Grand Champion's technical mastery, Kai embraced the uncertainty and chaos that came naturally to human nature. He began fighting with pure creativity, developing techniques that had never existed before and would never exist again. The battle that followed was beyond description in conventional terms. Kai's movements became increasingly fluid and unpredictable, while the Grand Champion responded with techniques that seemed to reshape reality itself. Spectators witnessed combat that transcended physical limitation to become something approaching artistic expression. Hours passed as the two fighters pushed each other beyond any previously imagined boundaries. The Grand Champion's accumulated mastery proved equally matched by Kai's unlimited adaptability. Neither combatant could gain decisive advantage, creating a contest that seemed it might continue for eternity. The turning point came when Kai stopped thinking of the match as combat and began treating it as conversation. He realized the Grand Champion wasn't trying to defeat him but was instead seeking to understand what made human fighting techniques unique. The entire match was an exploration of possibilities that existed when unlimited technical mastery met unlimited creative potential. This understanding transformed Kai's approach completely. Rather than fighting against the Grand Champion, he began fighting with them, creating collaborative combinations that showcased both accumulated wisdom and innovative discovery. The match became a dance between tradition and evolution, established technique and creative breakthrough. The climax arrived not through decisive victory but through mutual recognition. The Grand Champion acknowledged that Kai represented something genuinely new in combat development, not just another fighting style to be catalogued and mastered, but an approach that could continuously evolve beyond any attempt at categorization. When the match concluded, both fighters stood in the center of the Eternal Amphitheater, neither defeated nor victorious but transformed by their encounter. The Grand Champion spoke for the first time in recorded arena history, their voice carrying harmonics from across the electromagnetic spectrum. "I have existed to preserve and perfect the fighting knowledge of all species," they said. "But you have shown me something I cannot preserve or perfect, the principle of infinite growth itself. You fight not to demonstrate mastery but to discover possibility. This is beyond my understanding and, therefore, beyond my ability to defeat. The Grand Champion's acknowledgement transformed Kai from champion into legend. However, more significantly, it established humanity as a species whose contributions to galactic civilization were fundamentally different from anything that had come before. Humans didn't just participate in existing systems, they created new possibilities that expanded what those systems could become. In the aftermath of the match, Kai found himself facing choices that would determine not just his own future but humanity's role in galactic affairs. Offers arrived from across known space, diplomatic positions, military commands, research opportunities, and leadership roles that could shape civilization's development for generations. Kai's decision reflected the wisdom he had gained through his arena journey. Rather than accepting any single role, he chose to become something new, a bridge between human potential and galactic possibility. He established training centers where beings from all species could study human adaptability principles while sharing their own knowledge and techniques. These centers became focal points for cultural exchange that transformed galactic civilization itself. Traditional boundaries between species began dissolving as beings recognized that diversity strengthened rather than threatened their communities. Human philosophical approaches influenced everything from scientific research to artistic expression. Kai's fighting career continued, but his matches became teaching events rather than simple competition. He faced challengers not to defeat them but to help them discover capabilities they didn't know they possessed. His influence spread through the arena community and beyond, creating ripple effects that touched every aspect of galactic culture. Years later, when historians studied the period that came to be known as the Great Awakening, they identified Kai's emergence as the catalyst that transformed galactic civilization from a collection of separate species into a truly unified community. His demonstration that adaptability could overcome any challenge inspired beings throughout known space to question limitations they had previously accepted. The quiet farm boy from New Harmony had become something unprecedented, a figure whose influence extended beyond individual achievement to encompass fundamental changes in how beings understood possibility itself. Silent Thunder's roar had indeed announced humanity's arrival, but, more importantly, it had awakened the galaxy to potential that had been waiting to be discovered. Kai's story proved that greatness doesn't come from possessing superior abilities but from the willingness to adapt, grow, and remain true to essential principles while embracing infinite possibility. In teaching this lesson to the galaxy, he had given humanity its greatest gift to galactic civilization, the understanding that there are no limits except those we accept for ourselves. The young warrior whose fighting name had dominated every platform had achieved something greater than victory. He had inspired a universe to reach for heights that had previously been unimaginable. Through his journey from silence to spotlight, Kai Chen had shown that the greatest battles are not won through strength or technique, but through the courage to never stop becoming more than what you were before.